Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Let us begin. Let me just share my screen with you. We are going to begin the second chapter of Megilat Ruth. Now, I think I should have, I don't think, I know, I definitely should have done a better job yesterday introducing the Megillah, like what it is and the theme and the time and the setting and all that stuff. And I didn't for a slew of reasons that all have to do with my own psychology. No good reasons anyway. So it occurs to me that the book begins, Vayhi bimei shot hashoftim vayhi ba'arav ba'aretz, and it was in the time of the judging of the judges, and we spoke about that, and there was a famine in the land. Here's the thing, the judges and the famine are both saying the exact same thing, but from two different manifestations of the same idea. When you say it wasn't the time of the shoftim, that means shoftim as opposed to melech, as opposed to monarchy, which we discussed briefly yesterday. Furthermore, famine, vayhi ra'av ba'aretz, there was a famine in the land. Again, that's why you have a king. This is something that we talk about often in these shiurim, the chumash shiurim, in the topical shiurim. The purpose of a king, and again, I don't care if you call him a king, call him a president, call him prime minister, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. The purpose of the executive, the purpose of the king in the country, if everything is going well. I say if everything's going well because obviously things come up. Things like coronavirus, things like hurricanes, things like wars, that comes up. I understand. But if you remove that, do you know what the purpose of the king is? It's the economy, stupid. Reagan knew. The purpose of the king is to feed his people, to make sure that the society can feed itself, can sustain itself, can maintain itself. That's the purpose. So when it says it was in the time of the shoftim, in the time of the judges, and vayhi ra'av ba'aretz, and by the way, there was a famine in the land, that's not an accident. Those two things go hand in hand. There was a famine in the land because there was no king. And when there's no king, there's no one to feed the people, there's no strong leadership. So I think that's one thing that has to be pointed out. And again, of course, the result of this book is the malchut, is the monarchy, is eventually the birth of David HaMelech. So it's all about that. So you see that the opening of the book and the closing of the book are really going the same way. It's all just one gigantic continuum that begins and ends quite beautifully and quite truly. Next, the first character that we open the book with is Elimelech. As we mentioned, Eli Melech, to me the kingship. This guy thinks he should be king, or that the kingdom should come from him. And yet, he leaves in a time of famine. He leaves the Jews in a time of famine. I struggle with this a little bit, because like yesterday, I got up in front of you, and I said that Elimelech is a wonderful person. He's an amazing guy. He's a tremendous human being. His kids are tzaddikim. He's married to Naomi, who's one of the greatest heroines that we've ever seen. And yet they just leave their people and they go to the fields of Moab. I mean, that's not the type of guy who thinks that he can come back and be king, right? How do you square that he's such a big tzaddik and the fact that he just leaves his people and he abandons them? And I'm thinking, oh my gosh. Well, obviously, it's great. We said yesterday that he thinks the malchut is going to come to him. And he knows that we have to reintegrate the family of Moab in order to have malchut, in order to have kingship. He knows that. So possibly when it says, Vayelech ish mi beit lechem Yehuda lagor b'stei Moav, the man who is Eli Melech, who thinks that he should create the monarchy, the reason he goes to Moab is because he understands in order to create monarchy, it has to come through Moab. He knows that. He knows that the women have to come through Moab and be reintegrated, as we discussed. He knows that. Well, if that's the case, then why is he taking the task? Because now is not the time, silly boy. Now is not the time. You can't leave when you're a rich person, a wealthy person, a parnes, and the people are sitting there and they're starving. That's not the time to leave. You can create malchut another day. And as a matter of fact, for those of you who are learning Shmuel Aleph with us, you know that malchut is not something that you ever push. It's not something that you ever assert. It's something that has to emerge on its own. Okay, I think that's a really, really good start. So here we are in the beginning of the second chapter, and we said that Naomi has two daughters-in-law. Everything in her life she has lost. She lost her husband. She lost her sons. She lost her money. She lost her social standing. She has lost absolutely everything that remained to her in what was an incredible life, in a noble family. She lost all of that. And now she's going back. And as she goes home, as she goes back, one of her daughters-in-law, Ruth, the Moabite, comes with her, and the other one, Orpah, gives her the back of the neck. And we're not going to see in this Megillah, but when Orpah leaves, she doesn't just leave, baby. when you leave Judaism, man, you leave Arasof, and she leaves Arasof and ends up being the progenitor of a terrible, terrible enemy, a family, in fact, of terrible enemies of David HaMelech. So, Ula Naami Modali Isha. We begin Perek Beis. Naami Modali Isha. She had a relative of her husband's, but you see the term Modali Isha. Modali Isha, a relative of her husband's. That doesn't really do the text any justice. Moda, not Noda, not one who was known. Moda, the mem in its verb form is generally when a person specifically goes out of his way to do an action. That's what the mem is. Moda leisha, he is being known to his wife, to her husband. There was a man who was being known to her husband, but it couldn't be he was being known to her husband because her husband was dead and buried for a long time. So what does it mean, Moda leisha? He was being known to her husband. I think it means that when her husband was alive, this man, who happened to have been a relative of her husband's, this man, it's not just that Elimelech knew him. Elimelech went out of his way and made a point of being close to this person, of stressing the connection. Moda is active. It's not passive. It wasn't a relative, but rather it was something that he went out of his way to know. And I'll prove that to you because the Ibn Ezra brings down, he says, it's like Kimo, and he brings up the only other place in Tanakh where this word comes up. And I will show you there's literally one place in Tanakh where it comes up. And if only I can get rid of this toolbar. There it is, pesky toolbar. It comes up in Mishlei. Emor lachachma chosiot umoda levina tikra, which means say to wisdom, you are my sister. Umoda levina tikra, and intuition, a relative you should call. A relative you should call. What's the difference between chachma, wisdom, and bina, insight? And what's the difference between a sister and a relative? What is this double language in that verse? Again, this is the only time in the entirety of Tanakh that the word comes up, so it's significant. Your sister and wisdom, that's something that's not active. You know who your sister is. She's obvious to you. When wisdom happens to you, when you hear a piece of wisdom, boom, that's it. The wisdom's there. It's as clear to you as day. And this is why the Gemara says, the Gemara expresses actually a few times, it comes up a couple times in Shas, comes up in Sanhedrin, I think it also comes up in Brachos, it may come up in other places, where it says, Emor lachachma achosiat, that things should be so clear to you, that wisdom should be so clear to you, that it should be as clear to you as your sister. Meaning you know exactly what your sister's about, you know exactly that she's prohibited to you in terms of a sexual relationship, you know exactly what she's all about. The Gemara uses it in terms of clarity. Umoda la bina tikra. But for bina, for understanding, that you must call it a moda. Moda, one that you know, something that you know? No, something active that you continue to know. The know in the verb form. Because bina means mevin davar mitoch davar, to understand one thing from another. It means the understanding that happens after you have a piece of wisdom. That's on you. That's an active thing. And therefore, the term moda means you go out of your way to be connected to and know. So Naami had this man in her mind in Israel. There was this man in Judah, and he was known to her husband, Ish Gibor Chayil mimishpachat Elimelech, a man of valor, a warrior from the family of Elimelech, who Shmo Boaz, and his name is Boaz. And what a great name. What a great name for a warrior. Because as you all no doubt know, that the Israeli weapon, the Israeli gun is called the Uzi. The Uzi. Well, you might say, why does Israel manufacture guns? It doesn't seem like a good, well, now it actually seems like a good idea with the Golan and the Tavor, et cetera, but it wasn't a good idea in 1960s. Do you know why Israel created weapons in the 1960s? Well, that's easy. It's because nobody would sell them any weapons. So they had to create weapons. And they created the Uzi, which turns out is a terrible gun if you want to go to war. It's a good terrorist weapon, ironically, but it's not good if you want to go to war with it because it's short range and it's not accurate. It's called the Uzi, my boldness. That's the name of it, the Uzi. So the name Boaz is Boaz. In him is boldness. Boaz is 100% pure Angus bold, as we will see. Vatomer Rus HaMoaviyah El Naami. So this is the setting. There was a man who was known to Naami's husband, whose name was Boaz, and Ruth the Moaviyah, Ruth the Moabite, said El Naami to Naami, Ruth the Moabite, as if you don't know she's Moabite. But again, it's stressing the fact that she is the only Filipina in town. She's the only black Jew within 10 miles. And she says to her mother-in-law, we're poor, we have nothing. We have nothing. There's no wick. There's no SNAP benefits. There's no food stamps. Nobody's taking care of you. We have nothing. How are we going to eat? Well, it turns out there's a law. There's a law in the Torah. There's something called matnos aniyim, which is the presence of the poor. And leket shikha and peah are some examples of how if you have a field and you're doing your harvest in the field, the poor people would line up behind you. And as your guys went through with the scythe, right, that's the big thing, that the tool that they would use kind of to cut down the stalks, you would bundle it up for the owner. And then the poor people would travel behind the harvesters. And when things would fall down, they would be allowed to pick it up. And that way they would have like the trimmings, the things that would fall off of the cake, so to speak, of the baker, are eaten by the peasants, by the slaves, or in this case, by the poor. So she says, oh, we have to eat. So I'm going to go, and I'll go and collect some wheat, some stalks, in a place where somebody actually likes me and thinks of me, because you understand, and it pains me to say this, but like the Megillah stresses this time and time again, a lot of xenophobia. Like, it's not easy for Ruth to be here among the supposedly very welcoming Jews. We're not so welcoming. And not everybody liked her. Not everybody would feel comfortable with her walking around in her field. Maybe they won't treat her right. She's not going to just go to any field. She is going to go to a field of someone who's happy to have her there. Otherwise, she's not interested. I will go to collect, even if I'm going to collect charity, it's going to be in the field of somebody who wants me there. And she says, go, my daughter. And she went and she came and she gathered in the field after the harvesters. What do you mean? And she went and she came? Just say she went and she gathered. She went and she came. Meaning, you don't think that she only went to one field, do you? Before she felt comfortable? You don't think that she only went on her first field, she found somebody who liked her and everybody was like throwing food at her. Oh, no. And she went and she came and back and forth until she found a field where she would be comfortable. Vayiker mikre. And a coinky thing happened. Vayikar mikre. And a happening happened. Chelkat hasadeh leBoaz asher mimishpachat Elimelech. She found herself in the field, in a field, I should say, because it just so happens that Boaz is a very wealthy man. Remember, Elimelech, before his terrible fall, was Adam Newman. Adam Newman was worth $6 billion on paper before WeWork went negative and Yoshimino's son lost all his money. Before SoftBank went to poo, Adam Newman looked really good, and Intent Talks, wanted him, and everybody wanted to talk. All of a sudden, you got nothing. Well, the family, the Newman clan, the Rothschild clan, they got some big money. So Boaz has a lot of fields, and she finds herself in a piece of field that belongs to Boaz, who's from the family of Elimelech. Who's Boaz? The one I told you about in the beginning of the chapter. V'hinei Boaz ba mi Beit Lechem. And Boaz, behold, is coming from Beit Lechem. Interesting. I wonder why it's telling me that. Vayomer lakutzrim, and he says to the harvesters, Adonai machem, God is with you. Vayomru lo yivarechecha Adonai. And they replied to him, may God bless you. Now, I don't know how many very religious people you know, but the name of God is not a word that you're going to hear them say often or flippantly. Chazal explain that Boaz, who as a matter of fact was a shofet, one of those leaders, he was one of the shoftim, Boaz felt that at this point in time, it was necessary to inject godliness even into the greeting of people. He realized it was something that had to be done. And people respected him so much and honored him so much that they returned it to him. Yivarechecha Hashem. So again, the first time you meet him, what do you find? Azut, boldness, changes that you and I would not do lightly. Vayomer Boaz lenaro anitzav ala kotzrim. And Boaz says to his field manager over there, he's got lots of people taking care of his assets, and he says to the manager, excuse me, come over here. Let me on Arazot. Who's that girl over there? Who's that girl over there? Now, if you think that Boaz, who's like 150 years old at this point, he's an old man. If you think that Boaz would see a pretty girl and immediately turn to his field hand and say, hey, who's the chick? Then you know nothing about Boaz. Boaz sees this girl, sees the way she's acting, and can't get over it. Cannot get over it. The grace, the character, the bearing. Who is that girl? And the manager says, oh yeah, you didn't hear? She's that Korean chick that came back with Nami from Moab. Remember your cousin Elimelech who used to be worth a ton of money, and then he died. His whole family died. It was awful. And like, I know you're really successful, but now they're wiped out. So yeah, so the wife Naomi had this daughter-in-law, and she's this Moabite chick, and now she came back because they had nothing over there. Vatomer, and do you hear how backhanded he is? Na'ara Moaviyahi. She's this Moabite lady. She's a Moabite girl. Vatomer, and she said, she came over to me because I'm in charge, and she said, would it be okay if I come here and I gather some stuff? And she came here and she's been standing there since the morning. Now maybe she sat a little bit. Maybe she sat a little bit near the house. Yomer Boaz el Ruth. And Boaz says to Ruth, I'm sorry, I thought you told me that Boaz was having a conversation with his foreman, with his manager, with the plant manager. I thought you told me that Elon Musk was speaking to his executive vice president of sales. All of a sudden he's talking to the poor girl, literally the poor girl, who's standing in the line of what may have been hundreds of poor people waiting for drops. Boaz says to her, it was great. Boaz was done with the foreman. Boaz was done talking to the manager. Boaz had nothing left to say to the manager. Yomer Boaz el Ruth. And Boaz says to Ruth, Halo shamat biti, have you not heard, my daughter? I'll tell Chililkot b'sadeh acher. Don't go gather in another field. V'gam lo ta'avuri mizeh, and also don't leave this one. V'chot titbakim nim na'arotai, and you should stick with my girls. We got a group of girls here. They help. They help with the medicine. They help with the food. They make everything ready. They help with the sewing. Stick with them. Halo shamat biti, have you not heard? What do you mean, have you not heard? How would I possibly have heard? How would I have heard? I've never met you before. What the heck is your name? I've never introduced myself. You don't know what my name is. I'm standing here again in the schwitzy, sweaty line of pickings. What do you mean, have you not heard, my daughter? Don't go anywhere else. You say to somebody, haven't you heard? Haven't you heard? It's already done. I'm not telling you I'm going to do something. I'm not telling you I'm going to make a deal with you. I'm not telling you something's going to happen. Haven't you heard? Haven't you heard? That's what haven't you heard means. It's over. Haven't you heard? He's off the draft board. They took him. Haven't you heard? She got engaged last week. You can't go out with her. I won't put in a good word. Haven't you heard? The stock is sold. You can't buy more. Halo shamat biti? Haven't you heard, my daughter? Don't go anywhere else. And don't leave here. Don't leave. You stick around and be with my girls from the house of Boaz. Wherever your eyes go in any direction, you see a field that you like my strawberry fields, I got strawberry fields over there. It's fantastic. That's where we grow our yellow submarines, and those are the Lucy in the Sky Forever fields. It's wonderful. We've got all the different fields. Wherever you want to go. Have I not commanded the boys not to mess with you? It's already done. It's amis. And by the way, if you're thirsty, because not all poor people have a thermos in the year 1500 BC. So if it happens to be that you're thirsty, just walk right over to the staff section. There's a bar. And just ask the bartender. They'll pull it out for you. Get as much as you want. You notice the words that he didn't say to her were, hello, how do you do? My name is Bowie. I heard you're Russi. Like, very, very abrupt. She fell on her face. She bowed to him. And she says to him, why have I found favor in your eyes to recognize me, to point me out? I'm a shiksa. I hear the way they talk about me. I hear the way they say, Moabite girl, Shiksa. I hear the way they talk about me. Why all of a sudden did you decide that you want to talk to me? Why are you being so nice to me? Which again is so beautiful, because what's the first thing in Ruth's mind? I'm a young, beautiful girl. Here's an old single man. I say single because his wife had died recently. Here's an old single man, very, very rich. He sees me and all of a sudden he starts being nice to me. All of a sudden I get the keys to the Lamborghini and I can take whatever cars out of the garage I want. All of a sudden he's asking me if I want to go up in his helicopter for a little tour of the highway. Come on. Vayan Boaz. And Boaz responded, Vayomer Lan, he says, Hu gade hu gadli kol asher asisas chamosecha fremosi sheikh. This has nothing to do with me. I heard about you. I heard about you. I heard all you did for your mother-in-law after your husband died. And you left your parents and the land where you were born. And you went to a nation that you didn't used to know. I heard about you. I heard about you when I was in Bethlehem. Remember, the whole town was abuzz talking about Naomi, talking about Ruth. Boaz was there. He heard, but everyone else was jibber-jabbering about the social scandal. Do you know what Boaz was hearing? Do you know what Boaz was hearing when they were talking about the social scandal? Boaz was hearing, wow, what an amazing human being. Now you see, Boaz is related to Elimelech, who has good reason for thinking that the monarchy can come from him. So the family knows this. And not only that, but the family also knows that Moab and the daughters of Lot have to be reintegrated into the people of Israel. They know that as well. Do you know what Boaz sees the first time he puts eyes on Ruth? He sees a throne. He sees the throne of Judah. The throne of Judah. I think this would be, he doesn't see the throne of David, by the way, because there's no such thing as David yet, but he sees the throne of Judah. I should mention, I just want to plant this seed because it's going to grow and grow and grow over the next chapters, God willing. The daughters of Lot were impregnated incestuously with Ammon and Moab through an act of Yibum, of Levirate marriage. And Judah's son, the father of the monarchy, Peretz, was born through an act of Yibum, Levirate marriage. And Ruth, in this book, is going to become married through an act of Yibum, Levirate marriage. All three of those levels result in the throne. So he says to her, the first time he meets her, Yishalem Adonai Pa'alech. God is going to make whole all of your work. Utihi maskortech shalema. Adonai Elohei Yisrael, and may your reward be complete from Hashem, God of Israel, Asher bas lachasos tachas kanafav, that you have come to take shelter beneath his wing. And of course, Chazal point out, Utihi maskortech shilema, if you take out the vowels, they can spell a very different word. I should say not a very different word, but a slightly different word. Utihi maskortech shilomo. The ultimate trajectory of the actions that you have taken until today are going to result in the most glorious monarchy that Jews have ever had. And that was not under David, that was under Shlomo. Utihi maskortech Shlomo. And I heard a medrash once. I was back in yeshiva when I heard this a long time ago. I can't remember if it was a Gemara or a medrash. I'm hazy on it, but I can't remember the source. Perhaps someone can write it to me if they recall it. That it says that in the kingdom of Shlomo there was a chair. Maybe it's in Malachim. There was a chair for the mother of the monarchy, the mother of the king. And Chazal explained it doesn't mean Shlomo's mother. It doesn't mean Bathsheba. It means Ruth. That Ruth lived long enough to see Shlomo on the throne. I'm fairly certain that there is such a medrash. At any rate, Vatomer, and she says to him, I should find favor in your eyes, my master, because you have nichamtani. You've made me think a different way. You have consoled me. And you have spoken directly to the heart of your maidservant. Meaning you knew exactly what I needed to hear. That's the only thing that could have made me feel the way I now feel. that I know that my mission has always been true. I know that my mission has always been straight and correct. Even though I'm not even worthy of being one of your housemaids. I'm nobody, and yet you see this in me. Boaz, and Boaz says, goshi halom. At time for dinner, go over there, goshi halom. Goshi halom, really, goshi halom. Where do you hear goshi halom? Where do you hear goshi halom? Goshi halom is monarchy. You don't believe me? I'll prove it to you. Here's where you hear it. The first time you hear it, I believe. First time I think you hear it is Gesh Hala in Sodom. The first time you hear it is Gesh Hala. When the people in Sodom try to kill Lot, and his daughters are offered to them. The daughters that are the ultimate ancestors of Ruth. Here's another one. When Moshe goes up to the burning bush, Hashem says, Al tikrav halom, do not come close to halom. And the Gemara says, Moshe thought in the first moment that he was going to be king. And God says, you're not king. Because Gesh Hala and Goshi Halom refers to Malchus. So he says to her, when it's time, you will go. And you'll eat from the bread. And you'll dip your bread in the vinegar. Why are you telling me that? Don't think that you're just allowed to eat, so I'm giving you a pita. No. Take from the pickles, take the olives, take some of the beautiful rosemary infused oil and the vanilla bean. Take some of that too. And she sat next to the staff and she ate and she had extra. The last time she ate and was satiated and had extra was years before when her husband was still alive. The last time she had a good meal, that she had enough food in her belly and she didn't have to stop eating before she was full. Because ever before she would eat a little bit and save a little for tomorrow because you never know what's coming tomorrow. But for the first time in who knows how long, she ate without regard for how long it would take. And she was full. And wouldn't you know, there was leftover. Vatakam lelakate, and she arose to gather. Vaitzav Boaz es na'arav le'mor, and Boaz turns to his guys and he says, Gam bein ha'amarim telakate v'lo tachlimua. She doesn't have to follow the rules here. You know all the poor people that they have to walk in the middle of the shvil, what's the shvil? The path. They have to walk on the path. If she wants to go between the paths, if she wants to walk wherever she wants, let her go. It's all good. And by the way, pull off some extra stuff and drop some stuff. You know what I'm thinking? Make extra drops next to her. And she gathered in the field until evening. And by the end of the day, she had nearly an entire ephah of barley. Nearly an ephah. It's a huge amount. Now, the subtleties, the notes, the Easter eggs. The end of the first chapter was that when they returned, it was the time of the harvest of the barley. What time of year is the harvest of the barley? Pesach. And then we begin the barley harvest and the wheat harvest, which culminates in Shavuos, which is the time period that we're in right now. Who is born on Shavuos? David, from Beit Lechem, the house of bread. David from Beit Lechem. When the monarchy is going to be established, even though we're talking over 100 years before, where is it planted? It's planted in Beit Lechem during the time of Pesach to Shavuot. Vatisa vatavo ha'ir, and she arose and went to the city where her mother-in-law lives. And her mother-in-law sees all that. She's like, whoa! She didn't even notice that she was holding the end of the falafel, right? She had a whole shawarma balafa from Masav, and she didn't even notice that because Naomi couldn't take her eyes off of the gigantic like sack of barley. Wow. But before she looks at the barley, she hands her food. Because you see, there's sustenance, and then there's dinner. And dinner was something that Naomi hadn't tasted in eons. Because when you're poor, there's no dinner. There's just sustenance. Vatomer lachamosa. And her mother-in-law says to her, where did you collect today? Where did you do this? Whoever recognized you, may he be blessed. It's so nice that they took pity on you and let a nice little Filipino girl get some food and a shawarma. And she said to her mother-in-law, who she had this back and forth with, Boaz. The name of the guy that all this happened with today, his name's Boaz. You can imagine when Naomi hears that. You can imagine. Vatomer Naomi lechalata. And Naomi says to her daughter-in-law, Baruch hu Adonai. He is blessed to Hashem. Asher lo azav chasto et hachayim ve'et hametim. That he has not taken away his kindness from the living and the dead. He's still kind to me. He's still doing kindness to my dead husband, his kinsman. Vatomer la Naomi, and Naomi says to her, Karov lanu ha'ish, miko aleinu hu. He is in our family, in our house. Remember, House of Stark, House of Lannister, House of Targaryen. He is one of our redeemers. He can do Levirate marriage and Yibum. He can redeem us. Vatomer Ruth Moaviyah. And Ruth the Moabite said, you know, he told me that I can hang out with his dudes, with his harvesters, until the end of the harvest. So he's not looking to marry me. He's an old man. I'm telling you that he's giving me food because he's being nice, and he's letting me hang out with his staff because probably, I'm a young, pretty girl, and probably someone will find me attractive and know that I'm really nice and have the boss's blessing. He'll give him a nice bonus, and I'll get married. Vatomer Naomi al Rus kalasa. And Naomi says to Rus, her daughter-in-law, Tov biti im tetziim na'arot tav. Don't hang out with the boys of his staff. It would be good, my daughter, if you hang out with his girls. Ruth had misunderstood the kindness of Boaz. The first time Boaz comes up to her, she thinks he's recognizing her because she's young and pretty. She then tells him she's not going to have any of that. That's not going to be this relationship. Boaz says, no, this is because of who you are. I realize who you are, not only what you've done, but who you are cosmically, who you are historically, who you are epically. Now come, right? And he opens everything and helps her. So, whoa, he's helping me. One of the things that he'll help me with is finding a husband. Naomi's like, you misunderstand what's happening here. Hang out with his girls. When he said, hang out with my girls, Ruth thought, oh, hang out with the girls because that's where the guys hang out and then I'll get married. Shidduchim. No. Hang out with the girls and not the guys because you're not for those guys. You're for him. You're for him. Don't let anyone else bother you in any other field. And she cleaved to the girls of the Boaz house until the end of the barley harvest and the wheat harvest, which follows the barley harvest, Shavuos. And she returned to her mother-in-law and lived with her. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, in the 30 days, this learning has been brought to you, Le'iloi Nishmas, Shalom Dober Ben Yosef, and Hashem should have an Aliyah. Tonight, there's going to be a shir, God willing, at 7:30. It will be live. It will be live on Facebook, and it will be on Zoom, although not this Zoom. Much peace and much love be upon you. Remember, there's no Megilat Rus shir on Friday. Friday is 2:30. We're going to learn Chumash. Advanced Chumash is Friday at 2:30, and we will pick up with Megilat Ruth again, Bezrat Hashem, on Monday at 4. Peace and love.